Hello everyone, I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today, we're going to uncover the next chapter in Jack and Tu Tien's dramatic journey. After the storm and the dangerous trap Jack set for his enemies, he returns home only to find both his mother and Tu Tien missing. Panic rises, the search begins, and new questions emerge. Who is really behind these schemes? And why are they targeting Jack's family? Stay with us as we dive deep into this suspenseful and emotional story. If you enjoy these powerful family dramas, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss the next episode. The rain had finally begun to ease, though the damp chill still clung to the air. Jack drove fast along the slick village road, the glow of his headlights cutting through the thinning drizzle. His heart beat steadily, pushing him forward, urging him home. The memory of Tu Tien waiting in the kitchen, her face lit by a single bulb, kept him focused. Tonight's confrontation had been brutal, but it was over, or so he thought. As he turned into the familiar dirt path that led to the farm, relief coursed through him. But when he pushed open the door, stepping into the dim kitchen, something felt wrong. The cassava jar was there on the shelf, sealed and waiting. The TV hummed with a faint signal, storm updates still scrolling, but the room was empty. Tu Tien? Jack's voice cracked the silence. No answer. He checked the bedroom, the porch, even the storage shed outside. Nothing. The house felt like a shell, stripped of its warmth. Panic began to claw at him. His eyes darted across the yard, his breath shallow. "Mother? Tu Tien, where are you?" He shouted into the damp night, but only the fading echo of rain answered back. He stumbled back inside, hands trembling as he grabbed his phone. His fingers dialed instinctively. "Comrade Thu, it's me, Jack. They're gone. My mother, Tu Tien. Both of them. I can't find them anywhere. Send someone, please." On the other end, Thu's voice was calm but firm. "Stay put, Jack. Don't lose control. We'll send men right away." But Jack couldn't stay put. His mind spun, replaying every possibility. Did the enemies take them? Did I lure the wrong men into the trap while others slipped past me? The thoughts stabbed through him, each question more suffocating than the last. He bolted back outside, the muddy yard squelching under his boots. His flashlight beam cut across the wet fields, catching only swaying crops and mist. He ran toward the road, scanning every shadow, every corner of the darkness. His breaths came ragged, almost frantic. "Tu Tien!" His voice cracked, echoing against the silence of the fields. The name burned in his throat, each call more desperate. He thought of her waiting by the jar, whispering that he would come back. He thought of his mother, her gentle smile, her plans to plant flowers. Where were they now? The night gave him no answers, only the faint rustle of leaves and the dripping of rain. Back on the empty road, Jack froze, his mind racing. He pulled out his phone again, dialing number after number. Each ring that went unanswered tore deeper into him. He pressed the device to his forehead, muttering, "God, please, don't let them be taken." What Jack didn't know was that his mother and Tu Tien were not captives. Fearful for his safety, they had set out together to find him. When Jack had not returned as quickly as expected, Tu Tien insisted they couldn't just sit and wait. His mother, sharing the same worry, agreed. So they left the farm in the rain, calling his name along the muddy paths, searching for the man they feared had fallen into danger. But Jack didn't see this. To him, the silence felt like a cruel joke, the storm's aftermath hiding some sinister truth. He pressed his fists against his temples, trying to think. If they left willingly, where would they go? And if they were taken, by whom? The men arrested earlier had been dragged away, shouting their innocence. Jack had dismissed their cries, convinced of their guilt. But now, doubt seeped in. What if they weren't the masterminds? What if they were only pawns? The thought chilled him. Behind the storm, behind the violence, there was still a shadow moving unseen, a hand pulling the strings. Jack leaned against the truck, his chest heaving. His phone buzzed again. Thu checking in. "We've dispatched officers to your area. They'll comb the fields. But Jack, listen to me. This might go deeper than we thought. Stay sharp." Jack closed his eyes. Deeper. That word lingered. He knew it was true. For every face caught in the rain tonight, another one hid behind it. The minutes stretched into an hour as Jack searched, calling, stumbling through the wet ground. At last, exhaustion dragged him back toward the house. He collapsed into the wooden chair in the kitchen, his shirt soaked through. The cassava jar caught his eye again, sitting silently on the shelf. He stared at it, the weight of absence pressing down on him. Tu Tien had pressed that jar with her own hands, sealing both her love and her hope inside. Now it seemed to mock him, a reminder of what he might have lost. His phone rang again, sharp against the quiet. He answered instantly. "Jack?" Thu's voice carried a strange hesitation. "We're not certain yet, but the evidence we've gathered tonight, it suggests this wasn't random. There may be someone orchestrating all of it, someone close. Until we know who, no one is safe." Jack's grip tightened around the phone. "Someone close," he repeated under his breath, his eyes darkening. His mind sifted through names, faces, possibilities, allies, acquaintances, even family. Who could it be? Who wanted to break him, to destroy Tu Tien, to shatter their fragile peace? No answer came, only more questions, coiling tighter around him. At that very moment, not far from the farm, his mother and Tu Tien trudged through the wet paths, their voices hoarse from calling his name. They clung to each other, driven by the same desperate hope of finding Jack alive. Neither of them knew that Jack was at home tearing himself apart, believing they had vanished into the shadows of some grand conspiracy. The night was not over, and neither was the story. The rain had passed, but the storm inside Jack had only begun. Somewhere in the silence of the countryside, the real hand behind the chaos was still hidden, still waiting, still watching. Jack sat in the dim kitchen, staring at the cassava jar, his mind unraveling. His mother and Tu Tien were out there, searching for him, but Jack didn't know. And until the truth revealed itself, the mystery would keep growing, a riddle without an answer. For now, the story remained unfinished, a puzzle of fear, love, and betrayal, waiting for its next move. The hours dragged like an eternity. Jack sat in the small kitchen, the bulb above him flickering, shadows crawling across the walls. His hands clenched and unclenched, restless. The storm outside had softened, but inside his chest, thunder still roared. Every second without news from his mother and Tu Tien was another dagger pressing deeper. The phone rang again. He snatched it up, his voice raw. "Any news?" "Not yet," Thu answered. "We've spread officers along the village road. No signs of your mother or Tu Tien. But Jack, calm yourself. Panic clouds judgment." Jack slammed the phone onto the table. "How can I stay calm when my family is missing?" His voice cracked, the rage laced with despair. He rose suddenly, pacing, unable to stay still. His eyes landed again on the cassava jar. That simple dish, Tu Tien's hands pressing it, her quiet hope stitched into every grain of salt, felt like the only anchor in the storm of his mind. He whispered, almost to himself, "I won't lose her. Not again. Not ever." With renewed resolve, he grabbed his coat and stormed out, unwilling to sit idle while the night swallowed the ones he loved. Meanwhile, along the muddy path toward the village, Tu Tien and Jack's mother stumbled onward, their shoes caked in dirt, their clothes soaked. The rain had stopped, but the ground was still treacherous. "Maybe we should turn back," Jack's mother said softly, her breath ragged. "He might already be home by now." Tu Tien shook her head, her eyes wild with worry. "No, I feel it. He's still out here somewhere. He hasn't come back yet. I can't sit and wait while he might be in danger." Her voice cracked, tears mingling with rainwater on her cheeks. The fear of losing Jack was stronger than the storm, stronger than the cold that bit at her skin. The older woman placed a hand on her shoulder. "You love him fiercely, but sometimes love blinds us. We must be careful." Tu Tien nodded, though her heart still ached. "I just need to find him. Even if it's only his shadow in the rain, I need to know." Together, they pressed forward, unaware that Jack was tearing through the countryside in the opposite direction, convinced that they had vanished into the night. Back at the farm, Jack's search became more frantic. He drove through the narrow village lanes, headlights bouncing off puddles, horn blaring as he called out for his mother and Tu Tien. His voice cracked through the night, but only silence answered. He stopped by the riverbank, the muddy water rushing fast from the storm. Fear gripped him, dark images flashing through his mind of their fragile bodies swept away. He shook his head violently, refusing to accept it. "No, they're alive. They have to be alive." He called Thu again. "What if this isn't random? What if someone planned this, lured them away to get to me?" Thu's pause on the line was telling. "That possibility is real. Jack, listen carefully. The men we caught tonight weren't the brains. They were foot soldiers, nothing more. Someone else is pulling the strings." Jack's grip tightened on the phone, his knuckles white. Who? Who wants to hurt Tu Tien, to hurt my family?" "We don't know yet, but one thing is certain. This enemy knows your life. They know your routines, your fears, your weaknesses. They might even know your heart." The words echoed inside him, chilling him to the bone. Someone close, someone watching. Elsewhere, in the shadow of the forest's edge, a pair of unseen eyes tracked movement along the muddy road. A man in a dark coat scribbled something into a notebook, his expression cold, detached. He muttered to himself, "The game is moving just as planned." He tucked the notebook away and vanished into the trees, leaving only footprints that the rain quickly blurred. The mastermind remained unseen, his motives hidden, but his presence loomed over everything like a ghost, pressing down on the village. As dawn approached, the sky lightened into gray. Jack's energy drained, but his determination only sharpened. He returned to the farm once more, his clothes soaked, his eyes bloodshot. He burst through the door, hoping desperately to see them waiting, but the house was still empty. Collapsing onto the chair, he covered his face with his hands. His voice cracked into the silence. "Where are you? Why did you leave me here alone?" The door creaked suddenly. Jack jerked upright, his eyes wide. "Jack!" Tu Tien's voice was soft but trembling. She stood in the doorway, drenched and exhausted, Jack's mother beside her. For a moment, time froze. Relief and disbelief collided in Jack's chest. He stumbled forward, pulling Tu Tien into his arms, then holding his mother close. His voice was hoarse, filled with both anger and love. "Where were you? I thought I lost you both forever." Tu Tien's tears spilled freely. "We went to find you. You were gone too long. We couldn't sit and wait. I thought—" Her words broke into sobs. Jack's mother placed a calming hand on his shoulder. "It was my decision too. Don't blame her. We only wanted you safe." Jack's chest heaved. He wanted to scold them, to demand why they had risked themselves, but instead, he just held them tighter, afraid that letting go would make them disappear again. Later, as they sat together in the kitchen, Jack finally spoke, his tone heavy. "This isn't over. Tonight proved it. Someone is behind all this. The storm, the men, the fear. It's all pieces of something larger." Tu Tien shivered, her hand tightening around his. "Who could do this? And why us?" Jack's eyes darkened. "That's the question. But until I know the answer, none of us are safe." The cassava jar sat quietly on the shelf, a silent witness to their ordeal. Its presence felt heavier now, almost symbolic of the fragile hope that kept them tethered together. Outside, the morning light broke through the clouds, but it brought no peace. Instead, it cast long shadows across the farm, shadows that whispered of dangers yet to come, of mysteries still unsolved. Somewhere beyond those fields, someone was watching, waiting for the next move. And Jack knew, deep down, that the story of their struggle had only just begun. After surviving the storm and luring his pursuers into a police trap, Jack rushes home, desperate to reunite with Tu Tien and his mother. But when he arrives, the house is empty. Only the cassava jar remains as a haunting reminder of Tu Tien's hope. Panic consumes him as he searches the fields, fearing the worst, and even calls the police for help. What Jack doesn't know is that Tu Tien and his mother have gone out into the night, worried for his safety and determined to find him. As both sides search for one another, a larger mystery emerges. Who is truly orchestrating these threats? The arrested men were only pawns, and the mastermind remains hidden. The episode ends unresolved, leaving Jack, Tu Tien, and his mother together again, but shadowed by unanswered questions and growing fear.